right, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our virtual field trip this morning. My name is Megan Winters, and I work at the Ohio Pork Council, where I work alongside Ohio's pig farmers. So for those of you joining us through Zoom, feel free to submit any questions that you might have through the Q&A function, and our farmer will be happy to answer those. And if you're joining us through YouTube, you can insert your questions in the comments section. And again, we will get to as many of those as we can. I'd like to thank National Pork Board for sponsoring today's program. And without further ado, I will introduce our farmer host for today. So today we have Farmer Christine, and she is a service team member at family-owned and operated Heimerl Farms in Central Ohio, where she's worked for 2 years. Christine grew up showing pigs at the fair and studied animal science at The Ohio State University. Christine works with 50,000 pigs around Central Ohio and enjoys watching them grow from piglets to full-sized pigs. So without further ado, Christine, I will turn it over to you to tell our viewers a little bit about the barn that you're in today and what they'll get to see.
Good morning, everyone. So like she said, my name is Christine. The barn that we're in today is called a wean to finish barn. And the reason for that is that we bring piglets right from the sow farm straight here, and then they grow up for the rest of their lives here. So it's specially made so that big pigs and little pigs can spend their life in this barn. And I actually brought one of our little piglets up to the office with me. She is waking up from a nap. She was sleeping, but we just want to show you around the office really quickly, and then we'll go out in the barn and see the piglets. They were just weaned yesterday, so they are still figuring things out in this barn. But first, I kind of want to explain to you guys biosecurity. So we are very, very careful with our pigs and want to make sure that we don't bring any diseases in with us when we go to see the pigs. So before I come in, I take a quick shower, and then I change into barn designated clothes that are right here for me, just to make sure I don't bring in any viruses like that can make the pigs sick. So just like you guys are kind of dealing with COVID-19, we want to make sure we're washing our hands and all that kind of stuff. Well, pig farmers have been doing that for a very long time. And we do that by taking showers to keep the pigs safe. The other thing I want to show you guys up here in the office is this little box right here. So this is kind of the brains of the barn that controls all the ventilation, all the fans, everything to make sure that the pig stays comfortable. So as you guys can see right now, we're keeping our piglets at 75 degrees. So as we go out in the barn, I'll kind of explain to you guys why we do that. We do that because the sow farm is set at 2 different degrees types for the mamas and for the babies. So mama likes to be at 65 degrees and baby likes to be at about 85 to 90 degrees. So when they come here to the wean to finish barn, we want to make sure that this barn is set up for them in the temperature that they want to. So we set it at about 75 degrees because they also have a heater. Before we go over to the piglets, this is what the barn looks like empty. So between every single turn, we wash and disinfect the barn and make sure that it's clean and that the pigs that were here before didn't leave anything behind for these new piglets to see, because they are still trying to build up their immune systems. So we're here with my little friend. So this piglet is about 21 days old. It is a female. She has little toes, little nose, little eyes, and then she has her teats and everything, because one day she'll probably become a mama herself. So she needs to be set up for success so that one day she can have babies. So I'll point you guys so you guys can see the piglets. So like I said, these piglets came in yesterday. They are still getting used to transitioning from mama's milk to feed. So we'll go ahead and put this little girl back in with her pen mates, and I'll show you guys kind of the feed that they eat. So the piglets have two different types of feed. So this feed in this bucket is like a very fine dust. It's kind of like the feed that they're eating right now, but it's very fine and it smells like Cheerios. So it kind of makes the piglets want to go up to the feeder because it smells so good. And then when we get to the feeder, we usually sprinkle that feed around the feeder and in the feed so that this stuff is what they really need to be eating. So as piglets, we pellet their feed. So it's in these little pellets to make sure that they're getting as much protein as they can, because we don't want them to be getting a whole piece of corn because it's very hard to break down. So we already turn it into a really small piece of corn for them so that their stomachs can easily break it down and get all the energy out of that corn. The other cool part of their feeder is that they also have water there. Sorry, the heater is on. So because it's so cold outside today, we're having to run our heaters, make sure it stays 75 degrees in here. So the water is also here at the feeder. So the piglet kind of only has to learn one place that it can eat and drink at. We also have supplemented water for them too. As you can see, they're kind of over there. They're not used to humans too much. So their flight zone, which is the area around the pig, is quite large. They aren't accustomed to people being around them too much. They're pretty much accustomed to being with mama, but they have a little nipple water over there that when they press on it, more water comes. So when we talk about the life cycle of the pig, I've been using the word wean a lot. So these piglets are 21 days old. When they're born, they're about 2 pounds, and usually mama has a litter of about 12 to 14 piglets. Once mama is all done, those piglets stay with her for about 20 to 21 days while they learn how to eat and grow and be healthy. I'm going to sit down and see if they get brave enough to come up and see me, but during that time, they also get some antibiotics and different things like that just to help them build their immune system. The pigs get their immune system mostly from mama's milk. So mama's milk, the first milk is called colostrum. So we need to make sure the piglets get that to make sure that they start building their immune system. And then from there, they just live off mama's milk. And usually sometimes we put a little bit of feed down for them to start eating so that they're accustomed to eating feed before they even make it to this barn. So after 21 days, they come here and we keep them for about 25 weeks before they reach a weight of 280 pounds. So that piglet, when it's weaned from mama, so born at 2 pounds, weaned from mama about 14 pounds, so they are gaining weight very quickly. We call them feeder pigs once they meet about 50 pounds, and then market pigs when they reach about 280 pounds. And it only takes them 26 weeks to reach 280 pounds from 14 pounds. So they grow very, very quickly, and usually in between that time, especially in this barn, because we have gilts here, which is a female that has not had babies yet. They will go to other sow farms and become mamas themselves. So they're starting to get brave and come up and see what I'm doing in their pen. Is there any questions about the life cycle of the pig?
Yeah, Christine, we had a question come in prior to our trip about feed, and Miss Shoemaker's class would like to know, how much does a pig eat in a day?
Yeah, so when they're little like this, they're only eating about half a pound a day, but once they reach that 280 pound range, they're eating 7 to 9 pounds of feed a day.
Very good. And then Christine, we had another question come in from Miss Hammond's class. So remind us how old these pigs are, and then will they stay in this barn until they're fully grown, or how does that work?
Yep, so these pigs are 21 days old today, and these gilts that we're in right now, they will stay with us all the way through their time on the farm. So either they'll go out as gilts to sow farms, or they'll go out as market animals from this barn. But in these other pens, sorry, I got up. they don't like sudden movements too much. In these other pens, we have their brothers. So we call them barrows, which means that they have been castrated. These guys actually will not stay in this barn. They will move to a feeder to finish barn, which is a barn very much set up like this. It just doesn't have this brooder heater set up. So this brooder heater we set up for the piglets because, again, they like to be really warm. So we put black mats down for them so that soaks up the heat. And then this brooder has a flame inside of it that keeps the pigs warm. So half of the pigs will stay here, the girls, and then the boys will go to a different farm. We usually do that because some growers are very, very good at taking care of babies. So we like to give them the babies to get them off to a really good start so that they're set up for success when they move to that feeder to finish barn.
Very good. We have another question regarding the feed, Christine, while you're there by that feeder. Yep. How do farmers make pig feed? And today is Earth Day, so we know that some of our students might be celebrating that within their classrooms. So maybe you can talk to us a little bit about how farmers are environmentally friendly and what they do to care for the environment as well.
Yeah, so I'll answer the first part of that question first. So farmers make feed at what we call a feed mill. So different crop producers around the state will bring us their corn and soybeans, and we add a little bit of other ingredients into those two things. And then we mash it all down so that it's a fine feed like you see there. That's like a big pig feed in those hands. And we make that at our feed mill under the direction of a nutritionist. So yes, these pigs do have a nutritionist. They go through about 10 different types of feed from the time that they enter this barn to the time that they go out as market animals. Every time it changes to adapt to what that pig needs at that weight that they're at. So we want to make sure we're giving them everything they need, and that changes as they get bigger. Just like when you guys were babies, you were drinking milk, and now you drink food, or now you eat food. So just like these guys, they change what they're eating so that they grow correctly and safely and healthy. So going to how farmers are good environmental stewards, we want to take care of the land just as much as anybody else, because we aren't successful if the crops aren't coming up and the land isn't being very useful. So we actually use a pit underneath the pigs. So down here underneath the pigs is a 14-foot deep pit. That is where their manure is stored. Farmers then take that manure and they spread it on the crops. So they use everything that the pig produces for us to make the crops that we then use to feed back to the pigs. So it's a big circle, and we try to make sure that we use everything that we possibly can to make sure that we are being good environmental stewards.
Very good. We have another question here in the chat from Ashley Green, and she would like to know, how do you tell all the pigs apart?
So that's a great question. The piglets that are in this pen, we don't really tell apart too much because they don't have an identifying tag. But when that pig is sick, we have special paint that we spray onto their back so that they're easily identifiable if they need another shot, or need to be watched carefully. Usually when those pigs get a shot, none of these pigs have yet because they've only been here one day and they're doing really well, but when those pigs get a shot, they move into a smaller pen. So we've moved the piglets that were kind of smaller than everybody else into this pen so that they have a lot of room to eat, but they move into a pen where they don't have a lot of competition and can be carefully watched. And then we have some gilts in here. I don't know if they're going to let me get close enough for you guys to see, but the gilt over there up against the fence and right here in the middle, they have little white tags in their ears that identify them because those girls are actually going back to our sow farm. And we want to know how good of a mama they're going to be. So that white tag tells me their mother's and grandmother's performance so that we can kind of determine how good of a mom she'll be. So those girls have their own number in their ear that identifies them. There, you guys can kind of see it in that girl's ear.
Very interesting. So Christine, I know that you were talking about treating pigs with antibiotics when that is needed. And we also had a question prior to our trip from Miss Morale's class, and they would like to know, can pigs get sick? And what do you do to prevent that? And maybe what do you do to treat it? You know, do you work with a veterinarian or how do you take care of those pigs?
Yeah, so first we try to set them up with that first milk that I was talking about, the colostrum, to really get their immune system up to par because they have what we call a passive immune system. So mama passes all that good stuff to them through her milk. And then if they still can get sick though, just like we get sick, they can get a sniffle or cough, things like that. And usually we try not to treat with an antibiotic right off the bat. I try to use like an aspirin type substance, or we use something in the water called blue light, which basically turns the water into Gatorade. It just gives them a lot of electrolytes to help them fight that bug off. If we do have to move to antibiotics, we have a staff vet, Dr. Terry Speck, that we work with. And we kind of have a VCPR with her, which stands for Veterinary Client Patient Relationship. And we keep that very, very up to date because we want her help in knowing what we should treat the animal with and how much, because every medication is set on a dosage what the pigs are weighing. So we want to make sure that we give them the right amount. And then we also want to make sure that when we give that antibiotic to them, they reach their withdrawal time before the animals go to market. So that basically just means that every medication is in the pig's body for a set amount of time, and we don't want them to go and be further processed until they've reached that withdrawal time and we know that their meat is safe for consumption.
Very important to know. Thanks, Christine. We have another question that came from YouTube. It looks like those pigs are pretty lively this morning. Would you say that pigs are early risers, or, you know, when do they like to sleep?
So the pigs do usually sleep at night, but these pigs are very used to mama waking them up. So pigs actually eat about 20 times a day. So when they were babies, mama reminded them when it was time to eat. So she has her own grunt that her piglets know, and they know that it's time to come eat, that and they kind of recognize that their bellies are getting hungry. And then when they come here, we try to do what we call mat feeding. So when I came in this morning, I dumped feed on these black mats to get the pigs used to eating. And then they kind of figure out, as you can see over there, that the feeder has feed, and they go over and start eating out of there.
Very good. So Christine, you know, there's different parts of the farm, and we have a video up here of what a sow farm might look like when those piglets are still with their mom. So maybe if you can talk to us a little bit about the reasoning behind the different barns across Timerall Farms. Why are they set up the way that they are, and how do those barns ensure that the pigs are living a healthy life?
Yep. So we'll start at the sow farm. That's where all of our mamas are kept. So a sow is a gilt that has had babies. So we change her title when she has had babies to sow. So the barn is set up for sows in that way, gestating sows, which means that they are pregnant. They're set up so that they kind of have their own individual space when they've weaned their litter and go to the breeding line. So when they get done and the babies are weaned, they go back out to the gestation barn, which is set up for them so that they can be bred. So that's the farrowing house. He's in the farrowing house. We call it farrow because when a pig gives birth, we call it farrowing. Just a different term, just like cows calve, pigs farrow. So he's in the farrowing house. The farrowing house is set up with mama in her own individual crate or gestation or stall. So she's in that middle stall right there. And then the piglets have space on either side of her with a heat lamp and a black mat. So they kind of have their own space because, like I was saying before, when we walked out into the barn, mama doesn't want to be at 80 degrees like the babies do. She wants to be closer to 65 just because she's a lot bigger than the babies, and pigs don't sweat. So she kind of needs her own area to stay cool and be happy. And then that's why the barns are set up for her that way so that she can stay safe and healthy. And then these barns are set up the way that they are so that we can have a nice heated barn with a brooder heater that the piglets want to come up to, feeders that are easy for them to have. And we just want to make sure that the pigs are safe inside and feeling healthy, and they don't have any worries about predators, parasites, or any diseases when they're in these barns.
Very good. Christine, we had another question come in the chat here. Remind us, how old do the pigs need to be when they don't need their mom's milk anymore and they can transition over to that pellet feed that you showed us?
So they are usually 20 to 21 days old when they are ready to transition over to feed from mama's milk.
Very good. And so I've noticed that those pigs are generally about the same color. So talk to us about what kind of breed those pigs are. And, are there lots of different breeds? Are they similar to, like, let's say dogs, or how does that work?
Yeah, so these pigs are all going to be white, and that is for a very specific reason. These are all animals that are eventually going to produce piglets that go and become market animals. So the reason that they are white is because the processing plants, like white hogs, it's a lot easier for them to take the hair off and things like that. So they really like the animals to be a white color. But yes, there are multiple breeds of pigs. Some are more maternal and some are more for their meat. So as you can see in that picture, that Duroc, that red hog, he is going to be more of a meat kind of hog. And then the two white hogs, the Chester White, or the three, sorry, Landrace and the Yorkshire, are kind of our maternal breeds. These girls are a mix of all three of those breeds because these are PIC Genetics, which is the genetic company that we work with. And they help us to make sure that these pigs are going to be the best mamas that they can. So we use a lot of maternal breeding when breeding gilts.
Very good. So Christine, it looks like the pigs are pretty active this morning. What do they like to do all day? Do they typically stay together in groups, or do they like to spread out?
Nope, they like to stay together in groups. So if you guys can see the pen that I'm not in, they are sleeping. So they are underneath that brooder heater. They are happy. They are warm. They're all cuddled up together. They want to just take a little nap. Their bellies are probably full. So usually these pigs are eating or they're sleeping. They are really growing quickly, so their bodies need all the nutrients that they can get, and then they need the sleep after they've gotten those nutrients. Sometimes they're back in the back playing, so you guys can see back there, they're kind of all playing together, but pigs like to be in groups. They like to be with one another, and they're pretty happy when they get to be in a big pen like this.
We have a question that just came in from YouTube. Do the pigs ever get in fights with each other?
Sometimes they like to play and use their mouths a little bit. I don't see anybody doing that right now, but they don't really fight to hurt each other. They're more just playing, just like dogs play at the dog park. These pigs play with their mouths too.
So Christine, we've talked about, the different barns that are there on the farm. Talk to us about how pigs are transported from, say the nursery barn to a finisher barn.
Yep. So when these pigs are ready to move, there is a special setup at the end of the barn. So we'll walk down there and I'll show you guys the chute, but usually we open up this gate, we grab a sort board, which is just a barrier for them. Pigs are very visual when they're walking. They want things to be set up the way that they're used to having them set up. So if there's a board behind them that they cannot see through, they don't want to go in that direction. They want to go forward. So we move our pigs up this alleyway. When they're little pigs like this, we have what we call a rattle paddle. So it's basically like a big maraca, and it makes sounds, and that makes the piglets want to move away from that sound and go forward easily onto the truck. So when we reach this chute, we usually have a big semi truck with a special trailer made just for pigs up here, and they enter onto the trailer through here. And so there's like a little bit of an incline here. We call that our chute. That door opens, and then there's usually a big livestock trailer, semi ready for those pigs to move on. And that's how they move at all weight types from barn to barn.
Very good. Yeah. So some of us, maybe you've seen a livestock hauler going down the road. Talk to us about, what is it like transporting those pigs in the summer? How do they keep the trailer cool? And then maybe in the winter time, how do they work to keep the trailer warm?
Yep, so those trailers are made with holes in the sides of them that have a little bit of a slot that we can put a slide into, a black slide. So when it's hot, obviously all of our slides are out because we want as much airflow as possible to those piglets. So those holes right there bring a lot of air through the barn, through the trailer while it's moving, and really make sure those pigs are staying cool. We also put down shavings in those trailers, mostly to keep the pigs comfortable. So it's just bedding, it keeps it nice and soft for the piglets or the pigs. We also use that to keep them cool as well, because we put a little bit of water on them and make it so that the pigs are kind of laying in a cool, wet environment. And then in the winter time, we do the exact opposite. So we make sure all of our slides, most of our slides are in. They get double bedded, which is not wet, to keep the pigs comfortable and warm. And we make sure that we're moving at certain times of the day so we can make sure that they're staying at the temperature that they're most comfortable in.
Very good. So, Christine, we have another question here from Amanda, and she would like to know, where do the pigs sleep? Do they just sleep right there in their pens, or where do they like to sleep?
Yep, so I'll try to be quiet. They just sleep right in their pen. So if you guys can see that pen that I'm not in, they're all asleep over there. They like to sleep right underneath that brooder heater, all huddled up together. So they sleep right there in their pen.
So Christine, tell us, what do you do on a daily basis? So obviously, you are responsible for overseeing the care of many different pigs, but what does a typical day look like for you? And maybe what's your favorite part of your job?
So when I do my job every day, I stay within a sow farm flow. So the pigs that this sow farm came from, we have 7 barns that are just like this, designated to that sow farm for the gilts. I work with the females, the gilts, and I make sure that I know how to select them so that they'll be nice and successful mamas. So when I'm in that sow farm flow for the day, I go from barn to barn. So these piglets are very small, but by the end of the day, I'll see piglets from the same sow farm that were weaned 24 weeks ago and now are ready to go to market. So I see them at all of their growth stages throughout my day, and I shower in and out of all of those barns. So usually I'm taking about 8 to 10 showers a day. And when I'm at the barn, I'm just making sure that the pigs are healthy and happy and receiving all the care that they need to by working with our contract growers. To us, contract grower means that they built the barn, they own the barn, but we put the pigs in. So it's kind of like a hotel. They build a hotel for the pigs, we put the pigs in for them to live here.
8 to 10 showers a day. I mean, most of our students probably can't imagine having to take that many showers a day. Christine, for some of our viewers that joined a little bit later, talk to us about why it's important for you to stay clean to protect the health of those pigs.
Yep, it's important for me to take that many showers in a day because I don't want to take any sickness or disease that's outside of the barn into the barn to the piglets. In the state of Ohio, a lot of pigs are moving every day on the same roads that I drive on. So I want to make sure that anything that I might drive over, drive past, doesn't come into these piglets, make sure they're staying nice and healthy within their environment. And we call that biosecurity. So when I get out of my car, I put on special shoe covers and I walk into the barn. I then shower into the barn and have barn designated clothing in the barn for me. And then we repeat that process on the way back out. So I'll shower out of here so that if there's anything going on in this barn, which there isn't, these pigs are very healthy, but just in case anything could happen, I shower out of this barn so that the next pigs that I see don't get any germs from these pigs.
Very good. We have another question here from YouTube, which is a very good question. Christine, it's about predators. So maybe talk to us about why it's important for these pigs to be raised in this modern barn and how it protects them from any predators that there might be.
Yep. So we moved these pigs from living outside to living inside for many, many reasons, mostly because we can climate control this barn. Right now it's 37 degrees outside. These piglets want to be at 75 degrees. So we brought them in for that reason. We also brought them in because pigs are prey animals. They aren't really predators, and we want to keep them safe from anybody that might want to have them for dinner. So we've brought them in for that reason as well. And like I've said, these pigs are very, very healthy, and we don't want them to get any diseases that are outside that would make them sick.
Very good. So Christine, what is your favorite part about working with pigs? What do you think is the most interesting, and maybe what was the most interesting thing that you learned once you started working with pigs every day?
Yeah, I think the thing that I love the most about pigs is that they're very, very intelligent animals. They really like to learn and figure out their space, and they are very quick to learn things, which is really nice. So it really is pretty easy getting them to transition to this feed. And they're just great animals to work with for that reason. Sometimes they get themselves in a little bit of trouble, but usually they're pretty nice to work with because they're so smart. And I really like my job because I get to see them from itty bitty babies to big pigs.
Absolutely. So it's still pretty cold today, but summer is coming up pretty quickly. So talk to us about how you keep that barn cool in the summertime and some of the tools that you use in order to do that.
Yep. So the way that I keep this barn cool in the summertime is these 5 big fans against the wall. They pull the air from the tunnel curtain, which I'll show you guys in a minute, and also these inlets. So if this barn temperature was set on that brain box that I showed you guys earlier to 65 degrees, this would be coming open and the fans would be coming on so that the air kind of pulls out of there and like makes a circular motion down to the pigs. So the pigs aren't getting directly drafted from there, but it's making its way through and cooling the air in the barn by getting pulled out of those fans. And then we also make sure we have a mister setting for them because like I said, pigs do not sweat. So we kind of have to do that work for them. So we have a mister up here that sprays water that hits the pig's skin. And when the pigs then use their body heat and evaporate that water, and so it really pulls that heat away from the pig and makes them cool. And then at the front of the barn, where it's really, really bright, that's actually a curtain. That curtain will drop down as the temperature increases in the barn. So the barn goes into what we call tunnel mode, and that air, these inlets close, and that air really gets pulled from that curtain by these fans so that it's like a huge wind tunnel in here so that every pig is getting a breeze over them, which also helps to evaporate that water off their skin and help them to stay cool.
Very good. Thanks, Christine. I think that for a lot of us, it's interesting to learn about all of the science and technology that pig farmers are using to care for their pigs. If anyone else has any questions, please feel free to drop those in the Q&A box or the comments section. We did have another question come in from Ashley Green. And she would like to know, how many pigs do you gather each day? So maybe, how many pigs are being transported from that mother barn over into another barn like this that you might see on a daily basis?
Yeah, so the piglets, when they get weaned, they're usually weaning 1,200 pigs that day. So there's about 600 of these females and 600 of those males. And then when they get bigger, we obviously have less space on the truck. So we like to give them a certain amount of space depending on how big they are on the truck. So once they move up to market weight, we only actually put on 165 animals. So way, way, way less than what we originally put on. Because the animals are so much bigger and need so much more space.
Christine, here's a pretty interesting question that we just got from YouTube. Why do the baby pigs like their skin warm, but the bigger pigs do not?
So the baby pigs like their skin warm just because they are still trying to learn how to regulate their own temperature. And as they get bigger, they create more body heat. And they like to get rid of that body heat and be in a cooler environment because of that.
Very good. We have another question here from Amanda, and she would like to know, do the pigs go outside or do they stay here in the barn?
Nope, the pigs never go outside. They stay right here in the barn where they're safe. We don't want them to step outside just in case they might bring something into the barn. And they really kind of like being in the barn because they know exactly what's going on at all times and they know their surroundings really well.
That's great. Well, Christine, I think that adjust all of our questions that we have here in the chat. So if you would like, go ahead and flip your camera around. And then if there's anything else that you want to share with our students here today.
I don't think so. Hold on, I'm trying to get a piglet so you guys can see him up close. I think that we've had a pretty good day, pretty exciting. and just wanted to share with you guys what the pig's life looks like in the barn and let you know behind that stop sign that's at the end of the driveway is really a great place for the pigs to live, and they're very healthy and happy to live here, and they really create a safe pork product for you and your families to enjoy living in these barns, and they're really well taken care of. So this little guy just wanted to tell you goodbye, and we had a great time having you guys here.
All right. Well, thank you again, Christine. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to share a little bit more about pig farming here in Ohio. We do have a couple more upcoming virtual field trips for anyone who would be interested in joining us again. We have 2 trips coming up in May. We have one on May 13th at 10 a.m. And then we have a middle and high school trip on May 13th at 1 p.m. So again, we would love for you to join us again. And then we will also have some more trips following up for next fall semester as well as next spring semester. So thank you so much for supporting our program, and hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.